Okay, so we're diving into this new Flamma Indomita story you sent us. Lady Ember and the Little Flame.
Yeah,
right?
that's the one.
And you really want to get to the bottom of what it all means, especially, given everything that's going on in the story itself.
Definitely. There's a lot to unpack there.
For sure. So we've got the story itself, obviously, but also some analysis, even some notes on, well, how Flamma Indomita even came to be in the first place.
Right, right. Just to jog everyone's memory. Flamma Indomita, it's that really powerful image, the unquenchable flame. It symbolizes resilience, especially within the LGBTQ plus community.
And this deep dive is particularly interesting because Lady Ember and the Little Flame, it's not just a, cute children's story, is it?
Not at all. There are all these metaphors woven in, It explores some really complex issues, and it connects to some of the real-world tensions around, well, LGBTQ plus visibility in general.
Yeah. It's almost like this story is holding up this mirror to society. So we're going to try to unpack all of that, right? See how individual experiences, like what Lady Ember's going through, connect to that bigger idea of Flamma Indomita.
Exactly.
And how that story, The Little Flame, uses all these metaphors to talk about, well, frankly, some tough stuff.
For sure. Why don't we start with Lady Ember Gleam herself? So she's a drag queen, right? And she's hosting story time in a library.
Oh, yeah. And she's vibrant. So engaging. You can tell those kids just absolutely love her.
She's fantastic. But there's obviously more to her than meets the eye, right?
Oh, right. I mean, a drag queen reading to children, it's like an immediate challenge to some people.
Sure.
It's definitely not just about entertainment. It feels like a statement.
It is. It is. Lady Ember, she represents something much bigger. Her whole persona, like how flamboyant she is, even the story she chooses to read, they're all linked to Flamma Indomita, almost like, I don't know, carrying a torch,
Yeah, I get it. And then things get really real when those protesters show up. It feels like the story ripped that whole scene straight from the headlines.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's so relevant. They object to everything. Her being there, the book she's reading.
It's that classic protect the children rhetoric, right?
Exactly. Think of the children. It all plays into those real-world tensions we were talking about LGBTQ plus visibility, especially in spaces designed for kids.
It makes you wonder what they're really afraid of, doesn't it? Is it different perspectives, openly talking about identity? Because that's really what Lady Ember represents. Being open, being yourself, and not apologizing for it.
Absolutely. And I think it's super interesting, the story that she chooses to read, In the face of all this protest, she reads The Little Flame That Would Not Fade. And get this, it was written by Leo Martinez.
Wait a minute. Leo Martinez. As in the Leo Martinez. From the story of Leo and the Hidden Flame. Well, things didn't exactly end well for him, did they?
Yeah, that's one.
Wow. I mean, his story really resonated with people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The fact that Lady Ember is reading a story written by another character, like from within this whole Flamma Indomita world.
It adds like a whole other layer to it.
Well, absolutely. It's a conversation across time.
Yeah.
Connecting those characters, their struggles. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So the little flame that would not fade. Let's break down some of that symbolism. I mean, the little flame itself, it's not literally a flame, right?
No. It represents the individual, particularly a queer person, navigating a world that isn't always very friendly.
Trying to exist, basically.
Exactly. Think about someone coming out in a small town where everyone knows everyone else's business, or, I don't know, a trans teenager trying to be themselves when their family just doesn't get it. That's the little flame trying to survive in the forest.
And the forest is society. All those dark corners, right? The potential for both, like acceptance and de-rejection, just like the real world.
You got it. And then you have the storm, right, which is, well, a pretty classic symbol for hardship. But here, it's those very specific challenges, the prejudices that LGBTQ plus people face. I mean, you think about the discrimination, the hate speech, even the fear of violence. That's the storm trying to put out the little flame.
But it doesn't go out, does it, that little flame? It flickers. Might even seem like it's going to be totally extinguished.
But it keeps burning.
Yeah.
And that's that resilience that Flamma Indomita is all about. It's that inner strength to keep going, keep being yourself, even when it feels like the whole world wants to snuff you out.
And the light that the little flame gives off.
Yeah.
That's the authenticity, the pride.
Yes.
The courage to shine even when it's dark. Man, these images are so powerful. You don't even have to be LGBTQ plus wrong tier, I think, to connect with that. It's like this language everyone understands. That struggle to be yourself, find your place, make it through the storms.
The beauty of good storytelling, right? It taps into those universal experiences while still speaking to these very specific struggles. And in this case, the little flame, it really highlights the strength it takes to be yourself when everything seems against you, especially when that opposition comes from the people and the places that should be the most accepting.
And the fact that Lady Ember chooses to read this story right in the middle of those protests, it's almost its own act of defiance, right? It's the power of being visible, of representation. It's saying, hey, we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Exactly. And it's not just about Lady Ember herself. Remember Leo Martinez, the guy who wrote the story? He went through his own struggles too. They're both like torchbearers, passing on this Flamma Indomita spirit.
Wow, yeah.
It shows us that even small actions, even if they seem insignificant, can be part of something bigger. It's like passing the flame along, keeping it alive for the next generation.
It really drives home that point, that Flamma Indomita isn't some abstract concept. It's a living force. It's alive in people like Lady Ember, like Leo. It's impacting people's lives, whole communities even. Speaking of impact, how did the kids at Storytime react to all this? I mean, they're right there in the middle of it.
That's what I find really hopeful. They're captivated by the story, totally into it. It seems like those themes, resilience, being brave, acceptance, they're universal. Even little kids can grasp onto those ideas. It's never too early to start understanding them.
Yeah, that's really important. It shows that even with all the opposition, there's still hope. Now, you mentioned your notes talk about how Flamma Indomita was created. It wasn't like it just appeared out of thin air, right?
Right. The notes actually say it was a deliberate thing. Like it came about because of a particular crisis in LGBTQ plus history. It's pretty amazing how someone intentionally made this figure. It's almost like a rallying point.
Wow. So it was a conscious effort to make a symbol of hope. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's like they needed something, some kind of beacon during a really dark time. The interesting thing is there was this initial, I guess you could say, spark, but then how Flamma Indomita evolved. That was a group effort.
So it's like someone planted a seed and then the whole community helped it grow. That's kind of a beautiful metaphor in itself.
Exactly. And as the community itself has, grown and changed over time, well, Flamma Indomita has changed right along with it.
So how has Flamma Indomita actually been shown in these stories? Like, is there one consistent image people use?
The descriptions, they're pretty consistent, actually. Flamma Indomita is usually shown as this, radiant figure, kind of gender fluid, and always with these flames in the colors of the pride flag.
Wow, that's a powerful image. You can practically picture it, right?
It is. And that choice to use those visuals, it's very deliberate. It connects Flamma Indomita directly to the LGBTQ plus community, to all those different identities, those experiences, celebrating pride.
And the flames themselves, I mean, they have to carry a lot of symbolic weight.
Right.
Oh, for sure. They represent that fire of resistance, the passion for justice, that whole idea that struggle can lead to transformation.
So Flamma Indomita is this, dynamic symbol. It embodies both the history and the fight for LGBTQ plus rights, which is still going on.
Exactly. That's what makes it so compelling. It's a constant reminder, even when things are tough, that spirit of resistance, that pursuit of equality, they endure.
It makes you wonder, how did that specific look come about? I mean, we talked about the poem Flamma Indomita, which sets up the idea of this powerful spirit, but it doesn't really get into visuals, does it?
Nope, not really.
It's like this blank canvas, right? And different artists, writers, creators, they can all project their own ideas onto it.
That's a great way to put it. And as they work with that concept, right, they start developing these visual representations, which reflect their own understanding of what Flamma Indomita means.
Exactly. And I bet those different interpretations influence each other too, like a feedback loop of inspiration, all drawing from this common source. And through that, some visuals, like those flames and the pride colors, those became especially powerful.
Yes, and that's such a visually striking choice.
Yeah.
And deeply symbolic, too. It instantly ties Flamma Indomita to the LGBTQ plus community and all those different identities and experiences to the celebration of pride.
It's like saying this spirit, it stands for the whole spectrum, of our identities, our struggles, our triumphs, everything, even our joy. And the flames themselves, they give you this sense of energy, passion, like a transformative power.
Absolutely. They represent that fire of resistance, that unwavering commitment to fight for justice and equality. But then there's also this sense of warmth, like protection, coming from the flames.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like Flamma Indomita is there to protect the community, keep them safe.
It taps into that universal idea, right? The protector, the defender. the one who stands up for people when they're vulnerable.
So Flamma Indomita is both then. The fiery warrior and the compassionate guardian, all in one symbol.
A symbol of both strength and empathy, defiance and de-love.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about how all of this translates into real-world activism. Do we see any of that in the other Flamma Indomita stories?
We do. Another Crucible is a good example. It shows how, understanding history, learning from past struggles, that can inform how we act today.
And what about Flamma Indomita? How do they fit into that?
Well, the story uses Flamma Indomita in two ways, as a symbol of resilience from the past and also a source of inspiration for what we do in the present. It's like the spirit is saying, hey, we've been through hard times before and we can get through this too.
It's that reminder that the fight for equality never really ends, and that we can find strength in those who came before us.
Exactly. And it's not just about those big protests or grand gestures. It's about living that Flamma Indomita spirit every day.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, well, it could be organizing in your community, pushing for policy changes, educating people about LGBTQ plus issues, even creating art that challenges the status quo. Or sometimes it's just living your life authentically, being visible.
So even small acts, like choosing to be yourself even when it's tough, that can be a form of activism.
For sure. It's this powerful reminder that anyone can be an activist. Everyone can contribute to making a better world.
Which brings us to another big idea in the Flamma Indomita mythos. Mentorship. That passing on the flame of resilience to others.
Absolutely. It's about making sure that this spirit of resistance, this fight for equality, that it continues,
Yeah.
generation after generation.
Like that saying, each one teach one.
Exactly. And it's so important, especially when you're figuring out your own identity, coming out, facing a world that isn't always so understanding.
Having a mentor, someone who's been there, that can make all the difference. Like having a guide when you're in uncharted territory.
And that's where thinking of Flamma Indomita as a mentor, that becomes really powerful.
That's like saying you're not alone in this.
Right.
Other people have walked this path before, and they're here to help.
Exactly. And that message that you're supported, that there's solidarity, that can be incredibly empowering.
And we see mentorship all the time in the Flamma Indomita stories, don't we?
We do. Think about Leo, from the story of Leo and the Hidden Flame. He mentors other LGBTQ plus people, shares his experiences, helps them figure things out.
And Lady Ember, she's doing that too, in a way. Through story time, she's mentoring those kids, showing them what it means to be resilient, to accept others.
Even Flamma Indomita themselves appears as a mentor, right? To characters like Leo and Ethan, offering wisdom and encouragement.
So mentorship is kind of baked into this whole mythology. It's passing on the torch, making sure the fire keeps burning. But it's not just about giving advice or telling stories, is it?
It's also about creating safe spaces where people can just be themselves, no judgment.
It's about listening to people, validating their experiences, giving them support. It's helping them find their own voices, their own paths.
And understanding that everyone has something to offer, something to teach, something to learn.
It's a two-way street then.
Absolutely. It benefits both people, the mentor and the mentee.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Flamma Indomita as a symbol, a source of inspiration, reflecting real-world struggles, a force that's inspiring activism and mentorship. What really stands out to you about all of this?
I think what's most striking is how Flamma Indomita is becoming this cultural touchstone. It's not just within the LGBTQ plus community. It's in these broader conversations about resilience, defiance, fighting for social justice.
I've noticed that too. It's popping up everywhere, like art exhibits, music festivals. You even see it in mainstream news. It's like this ancient spirit is coming out into the open, ready to get people talking.
And it's happening at a time when we really need these conversations. There are so many challenges we're facing. Climate change, social injustice, political polarization. It can feel overwhelming,
But Flamma Indomita reminds us that we're not alone in all of this. That throughout history, people have faced things that seemed impossible to overcome, and they came out stronger, even more determined.
It's about tapping into that shared sense of resilience, finding strength in the struggles and the triumphs of those who came before us.
And understanding that even little acts of courage, kindness, even just defiance, those can make a difference.
Which takes us right back to Lady Ember and the Little Flame. It's not just some cute story for kids. It's a call to action. It's asking us, what are you going to do to keep that flame burning?
How will you live that Flamma Indomita spirit? That's a really powerful question to think about. Yeah, it really is. It makes you think. As we're wrapping up this deep dive, I keep coming back to those visuals we talked about. Flamma Indomita with the flames, the pride colors. Such a powerful image. Have you noticed, like, how people are using it
Yeah.
outside of the stories, I mean?
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere. Artwork, murals, people are getting tattoos, even putting it on clothes and stuff. It's like they're taking that symbol and making it their own.
Like they're saying, this means something to me. I want to carry it with me.
Right. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Flamma Indomita speaks to this really basic need we all have, I think, for resilience, for hope, for having the courage to be yourself, even when it's really hard.
And as more people see it, as that symbol spreads, it has the potential to create even more change, don't you think?
I do. It's this reminder that even though Flamma Indomita came out of the struggles of the LGBTQ plus community, that message about resilience, about defiance, that can resonate with anyone, anyone who's ever faced hard times.
It's a message for everyone. It's about the human spirit, overcoming challenges, fighting for a world that's better than the one we have now.
And that fight, it takes so many different forms. It's not always about protests or making these grand gestures. It's about those little acts of courage we do every day, those moments when we choose to stand up for what's right, even if it's hard.
Like Lady Ember reading The Little Flame, even though those protesters were trying to shut her down.
Exactly. It's about figuring out how Bubby E can live that Flamma Indomita spirit.
So, as we're finishing up here, I want to turn it back to you, our listener. What really stood out to you in Lady Ember and The Little Flame?
Yeah, think about that for a second. Where do you see those sparks of Flamma Indomita in your own life?
What are you passionate about? What are those injustices that make you want to work towards a better world?
And how can you, in your own way, help keep that flame of resilience burning bright?
We hope this deep dive has given you some things to think about, maybe even some inspiration, to embrace that strength inside you, to find your own way to make a difference.
Remember, even a tiny spark can light a huge fire.
Thanks for joining us as we explored Lady Ember and the Little Flame, and the whole legacy of Flamma Indomita. Keep those flames burning bright.
For more Queer Trip podcasts or more Flamma Indomita stories, visit the Queer Triptych at www.queertriptych.weebly.com. Have a great day and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.